I think I'm good. So I'm going to be reading to you. Well, I'll start over. Scott Howard here. I'm the author of 3 Days and 2 Nights: An Amusing Arthurian Adventure. That's my novel. I've got another novel called Faraday's Mirror, which I have finished and I'm hoping to have come out this summer. My publisher is the Piedmont Journal of Poetry and Fiction, a local Virginia press. I'm a local English teacher at Prince William County Schools. I also run Poets and Writers Night at Deja Brew Cafe in Warrenton. And once this quarantine is over and we can finally get back together, we'll be doing that every second Friday of the month. So I'd love it if people would come out and see us there. It's a small group, but it would be great. Only other thing you need to know about this is, I read it to my 9-year-old. Hey, my 9-year-old's here. Alden, you want to stick your face in front and say hi?
You're eating broccoli. Don't open your mouth.
So, I read this to my 9-year-old, but I think it's technically PG-13. There's implied sexual situations and some lewd humor that, you just may want to watch out for. So, it's your decision, but it's just mostly fun. So, without further ado, I'm just going to start reading. I'm going to read, like I said, the first 4 chapters, and hopefully you enjoy. Also, I'm going to use voices, so be ready for that. It's just who I am, and it's how it's going to be. So
he likes doing it.
Sweet. That's my wife, Beth. All right, The Minstrel's Tale, a comedy of genders by Scott Davis Howard, Piedmont Journal of Poetry and Fiction Press. Copyright 2017. I'm reading now. You can't be in the screen. All right, so here we go. A long time ago, in the old days of yore, in a time long, long, yes, long, long before, crusades, cannonades, polearms, or plague, back before the Dutch started building the Hague, but yet many years past the fall of Rome, there lived an incredibly hideous gnome. His name was Poindexter, and it was easy to see that a being much fouler there could hardly be. There was, of course, one, a heinous, bald hag, whose papery skin and other things sagged. But she isn't yet part of this fanciful rhyme, so here we will leave her be for some time. As I was saying, Poindexter was gross, from the warts on his toes to those on his nose. He was fouler than foul, both outside and in, but his wits were as sharp as the point of a pin. He felt insults keenly, I'm sorry to say, always expecting to get payback one day. Alden's trying to play with my camera. Always expecting to get payback one day, especially against a handsome young prince, Hubert by name, who once told him this: "Thou hideous gnome, get thee out of mine sight. By God, next to you the night would look bright. You outstink the skunk, you outslime the slug, your eyes look like raisins, your beard a cheap rug. Your head is as bald as an elephant's turd. In shape you resemble a stumpy cheese curd. Why, if you ever get married, a thought that I doubt, your wife will be something you cannot take out. In fact, I say now, should you snare a woman to keep, I'll lay down good money neath her dress is a sheep." Uproarious laughter followed this speech. Poindexter's strong anger a new threshold reached. He swore to take vengeance upon that young prince, imagining which of the man's organs he'd mince. With a knife sharply honed, or perhaps somewhat dull, maybe flay him alive. His options he mulled. But as he was stewing, a horrible plot formed in his mind, and it just hit the spot. He would go to a wizard, he knew very well, and get him to cast a transforming spell. An ancient old codger who owed him a favor for helping him to shave an ogre with a razor. For ogre beard hair, as you probably know, takes significant time for an ogre to grow, and ogre beard hair is an ingredient in many a rare potion and expedient. But enough of this wizard and the cause he's indebted. Suffice it to say... I just lost my side. Poindexter would get it. Our gnome now smiled, crooked teeth showing, for he had a plan that had his heart glowing. He'd turn into a princess, and he'd marry that prince. And when the spell ended, wow, would that sucker wince. And marriage was binding, so that prince would be stuck. This line was omitted, but it ended in duck. So he went to the wizard and demanded his spell and some fancy perfumes to cover his smell, and soon foul Poindexter was dainty and sweet from his curled eyelashes to his tiny cute feet. He was the best looking of all the fair maidens, more appetizing than a pan full of bacon. His face was heart-shaped and his cheeks were bright pink. A smile showed white teeth, sultry eyes winked. His long, shapely body knew just how to walk, and when he passed by the boys, they indecently gawked. He wore fine, bright leggings and a ravishing dress, and he knew that young Hubert was in for a mess. 2 days until midnight was all that he had before his sweet lithe body shriveled back to its core. Poindexter swayed toward the castle, his plan set in action, waiting to get his sweet satisfaction. That's the end of part 1. Like I said, I'm going to read you 4 parts. But maybe I could talk just a couple minutes in between the parts. Like I said, this is styled in the format of the Canterbury Tales. It's actually kind of a fun story where this came from. I was teaching English 12, and the Canterbury Tales is part of the curriculum of English 12. And I had this assignment. I'll just go ahead and stick your face in the picture. It's fine. I had this assignment that I gave all my students, which was to write a Canterbury Tale, to write a medieval story. It was being judged on 2 criteria, the same 2 that the Canterbury Tales are being judged on. Entertainment and morality. It had to be entertaining, and it had to have a moral lesson. And so my students challenged me to write one too. And seriously, my students challenged me to write one too, and so I did. And theirs had to be like 15 or 20 lines long or something like that. And this ended up being like, I don't know, ridiculous, 37 pages of poetry. For what it's worth, that's how it came about. If you have comments, you have questions, you can just leave them in the feed here, and I will try and answer them at the end. I'll try and roll through and see what I can find to answer it. But I'm going to get back into the story with part 2. But enough of Poindexter, we're on to part 2, which concerns an old hag who smelled like wood glue. You met her before, briefly back in part 1, but now she's upon us. I warn you to run. Oh, and this episode occurs a day later than the one you just read, and it is somewhat greater in length than the last, so I'll trust your patience as you learn of this hag and her situation.
Sorry.
No worries. Sorry, I spilled my tea too. These things happen. As you learn of this hag and her situations, Hildebrand, she was called by name, and once a man saw her, he was never the same. He'd get random shivers that ran down his bones whenever he pictured that god-awful crone. I know what you're thinking. She's got to use magic, but I'm sorry to say that her story's more tragic. An ugly old woman, not mean, but not happy, all alone in the world except for her pappy, a toothless mute invalid of incredible age. He waited, impatient, for the end of his days. He sat in a rocker, unable to rock, his mouth always flapping, unable to talk, and Hildebrand fed him and washed him sometimes. She daren't neglect him, for it was a crime, and she didn't know magic, though she seemed like she should. So try as she might, she did no one much good. Well, out in her field, Hildebrand, she was digging some turnips for dinner because, well, turnips are cheap and can be boiled and mashed and even with onion turned into hash. But as she was digging, she heard a loud thunk. So she stooped to the ground and unearthed a trunk. Grabbing an axe, she chopped off the lock, opened the box, and it knocked off her socks. Gold! Precious piles and rubies and pearls. Enough costly wealth to conquer the world. Well, a good portion of it, perhaps, with a little luck, and an army in general that have some pluck. Her good fortune had earned her a fortune that day, but I'm sorry to say that it all went away. For who happened that moment to ride out of the brush? Hubert the Prince, eating chicken for lunch. You're hearing Alden draw over there, which is fine. Now I lost my spot. Oh, right. He rode with his cronies, 2 beefy young thugs, who were each giving separate brown bottles a chug. They reined in their horses in front of the treasure, dismounting to examine it at their leisure. Now I claim this gold in the name of the prince, Hubert said, and the smile left Hildebrand's lips. Look here, she began, but the thug grabbed her ear. He would have gone for her hair, but her scalp was quite bare. I'd rather not look, said the prince with a smirk. In case you can't tell, he was really a jerk. Thou art the ugliest thing I've seen in a week, and that's saying something, 'cause I had a peek at a hideous gnome just yesterday. as I ordered the midget out of my way, and I gave him a piece of my very fine wit. Made the old fool throw a very fine fit. But enough of this talk. I'll be off with my money, for the treasure's all mine, mine and my honey's. For I marry tomorrow, as thou might not know. I've met a fine lady, and am intending to sow my oats in her field as soon as we're wed. I'll use some of this money to buy a great bed, a gold frame to match my pop's golden throne, except on his throne he'll be sitting alone. Ah, she's the sweetest eye feast thou ever did see, gives kisses that melt the cold core in me. He sighed, and at this, then his eyes turned back hard, and he leaped on his horse, cantered out of the yard. Back up that treasure, he yelled to his men. Bring it back to my castle, and steal that hag's hen. Take her shovel and goat, don't leave her a thing. That's how I'll soon tax 'em when I am the king. His thugs took the money, the shovel and goat. They even took turnips and her last lowly groat. They left her there crying and desperate and sad, but it wasn't so long till she turned very mad. She stalked into the brush, calling out a great curse, damning that prince and wishing him worse. She snapped off a tree using unholy strength and hurled a rock an unholy length. She pounded her breast and frothed at the mouth, not sensing her steps were taking her south. Into a hen she unknowingly strode, a far-off dark place very far from all roads. Girded with stones, it was creepy and dank. Mist curled and crept and gusted and stank. Then, unthinking about unholy implications, she cried out to Satan, who straight took a vacation. Up to the earth, surging out from the ground, shooting fire and smoke, old Nick looked around. Who is it thus calls on the Lord of all gloom? What is it you want that you'd risk your own doom? He glared down at her, horns curved from his head, his hoof pawed the ground and his skin glinted red, a pitchfork he fingered in well-muscled hands, and the life force it drained from old Hildebrand. Your pardon, my lord, she said with a stammer. He set down his pitchfork. Now what is the matter? His voice sounded kind, and his eyes smiled at hers, and she had no choice but to say her words. I want my revenge on Hubert the Prince. I want him to moan, beg, crawl, cry, and wince. I'm willing to do whate'er you require, even sell my soul, if that'll pay her hire. Amazed at her anger, encouraged within, she rewarded herself with a small sheepish grin. Certainly, my dear, with your soul as collateral, you'll get what you wish, however fanatical. What is your plan? How to meet your desire? It can be yours, though you risk my hell's fire. Thank you, my lord, Hildebrand made reply. But begging your pardon, I do think I spy a problem in this little bargain we make. It doesn't seem traditional that you would just take my soul without some kind of contest or clause. Yeah, no, it's still going. It looks like it stopped. I think it's just that computer being slow. Thanks for letting me know, though. Where was I? It doesn't seem traditional that you would just take my soul without some kind of contest or clause to allow me to retain it and escape your dread jaws. He picked up his pitchfork, some flames thereof blew, but old Satan's voice was noticeably cool. Tell me your plan, hag, and I'll tell you mine, and make it quite quick, for I've not got the time. I've souls to torment. Oh no, I just lost my spot. Big time. You know, this is the first time I've done this, and we're bound to have some problems. I hit the down arrow instead of scrolling, and so I lost myself entirely. Like entirely. Let's see.
Just find the word Satan and go down.
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to find it. Here we are. Tell me your plan, hag, and I'll tell you mine, and make it quite quick, for I've not got the time. I've souls to torment, to dip in hot oil, to skewer on a spit, to boil and broil, and yours could be one of them. I tell you that straight, for the hour of your death will come early or late. She took a deep breath, then launched on her plan. Switch me with the prince, yes, make me that man. I'll ruin his life, anger his wife, take all my gold, and cast him out in the cold. He can be me, a wretched old crone, and beg on the street and mumble and moan. He can clean pappy and dig dirty roots in ill-fitting clothes and ill-fitting boots. Perhaps that'll teach him to treat people right, or perhaps he will die and be out of sight. Old crone, said the devil with a stern, cold frown, I do like your plan, but it just won't go down. I cannot change people for life, for a